Greetings, I'm your host, Dr. Wolfula, and I have a very different video for you folks at home. I am reviewing a book, not a movie, not a TV show, not a video game, a book. Now, what fine piece of literature has commanded my attention enough to make a video about it? Only among the finest works in the medium of young adult horror movie tie-in novels, Halloween: The Scream Factory, written by Kelly O'Rourke and published by Boulevard Books, the first in a trilogy of books aimed at a young audience that were based on the Halloween franchise, starring the shape himself, Michael Myers. You might be thinking I'm making shit up right now. This sounds ridiculous, I know, but indeed, these books, while obscure, do in fact exist. A lot of hardcore Halloween fans don't even know that there was a series of young adult books about the adventures of Michael Myers. It's an extremely unexplored aspect of the franchise, so to start out, you might be wondering, how did these books come to exist? Well, I'm still not totally clear, but I have my hunches. In the 1990s, horror literature aimed at kids and young adults was big, thanks in no small part to the contributions made by R.L. Stine with his popular Fear Street and Goosebumps books. Slasher icons Jason and Freddy got in on the young adult fiction action in 1994 after their film franchises had seemingly petered out. I think there was a genuine hope by film executives at New Line that these books would be just the thing that their horror icons needed to be reinvigorated and find a fresh new audience. But the Friday the 13th books about Jason's mask possessing people and Freddy Krueger's Tales of Terror books only had a handful of entries before getting cancelled. Bad timing, because Scream came out in 1996 and turned out to be the film that actually reinvigorated interest in the slasher genre among young audiences, and, of course, it featured the original Halloween prominently throughout the final scenes. This, of course, led to Halloween H2O coming about in 1998, but while that film was being produced, something else was in the making within the franchise a year earlier, a series of 3 young adult Halloween books released from October 1997 to February 1998, written by the reclusive Kelly O'Rourke, aka Kelly Reno. Not much is known about the authoress Kelly O'Rourke. She's the veritable J.D. Salinger of young adult horror movie tie-in novels. Kelly O'Rourke has written at least a few other later novels under her Reno pseudonym, but as far as I can tell, these Halloween novels are her first and most popular books, which is depressing considering most Halloween fans don't even know they exist. Kelly O'Rourke was tabbed to write these books by the late producer of the Halloween series, Joe Wolf, in 1997 to try to capitalize on the newfound interest in Halloween in the 90s and the burgeoning popularity of young adult fiction. The weird thing about these Halloween books is that they don't seem like they were published in the 90s, though. The covers and titles make them seem much older, like they were Pulp Fiction books from the 60s with a bootleg-looking Michael Myers on the cover. It's also strange because I think of these books as releasing during a phase in the Halloween franchise's history where the series was long dormant, but in reality, the books were written just a few months before Halloween H2O released and a couple of years after Curse of Michael Myers. These books were possibly written to either promote or cash in on Halloween H2O, but the other strange thing is that, besides the familiar iconography on the covers, no mention the books are made to connect themselves to the film being produced at the time. I think Compass International Films, the Halloween rights holders, might have simply approved these books as a way to make some extra money from licensing fees on the side while Dimension Films was making Halloween H2O, in the hopes that these two unrelated projects would benefit each other financially. Now, why haven't most of you Halloween fans even heard of these young adult novels? It's simple. The Kelly O'Rourke Halloween books are extremely rare. The novels were short-lived at 3 books and only had 1 printing each, making the books collector's items that are hard to find at a reasonable price, costing hundreds of dollars on eBay or Amazon. A lot of money for a 153-page book. As soon as I first heard about the books, I wanted to cover them, especially since info about them on the internet was hard to find for the longest time. Unfortunately, I didn't have the cash to drop on a copy of the first book, let alone the whole set of 3. But that's where fans come in. I'd like to thank Brian Chapman for letting me borrow his copy of The Scream Factory. Without him, this video wouldn't be possible. Now, enough setup. Let's finally talk about Halloween: The Scream Factory itself and whether or not it's actually worth tracking down. First, a warning. I will be describing the entire plot of the book in this video. Spoilers throughout, in case you're interested in actually finding the book yourself. I will be recording my own audiobook of The Scream Factory, so get subscribed if you want to hear it when it drops on this channel. Alright, let's move on to the review. The plot, taking place near Halloween of course, chiefly concerns two Haddonfield High School students named Laurie Parker, aka Not Laurie Strode, and her friend Sally. Laurie's a bookish type, a wallflower if you will, the complete opposite of Laurie Strode from the original film, who totally put herself out there.
Totally.
Sally, conversely, is much more extroverted, more popular, and is currently dating the star quarterback of the school, Matt Hudson. Matt is the character that actually propels the plot and creates conflict early on. You see, Matt broke up with the richest, snobbiest, most popular girl at school, Marcia, who's hosting the biggest Halloween party. So Marcia hates Sally for dating Matt now, and Sally hates Marcia just for being a cunt. Okay, so there's a lot of teen relationship drama here. Always fun to read about. Anyway, Sally and Laurie are teamed up by their teacher, Mrs. Grubbs, yes, that's her name, to work on a history report together and decide to write about the early settlers of Haddonfield, heading down to City Hall to track down historical records. Now, the internet existed in 1997, but it still wasn't quite widely available. I'm sure you're wondering what this Nancy Drew shit has to do with Michael Myers. Well, I'm getting to it. All the other stuff is just plot devices. The history report shit gets totally swept under the rug later. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that the girls are allowed access to the basement of City Hall where the town's records are stored and discover a locked file cabinet broken into by force that contains confidential records about the Halloween killer, Michael Myers. Now here's what the news report that the girls find says. November 1st, 1978, Halloween massacre at Haddonfield. Residents of Haddonfield are mourning the loss of 4 local teenagers who were brutally murdered last night by convicted killer Michael Myers. Police report that Myers escaped from the Smith Grove Mental Hospital where he had been undergoing psychiatric treatment after murdering his sister Judith Myers 15 years ago on Halloween night. The murder weapon, a large kitchen butcher knife, was found at the scene of the crime on Oak Street. Myers was last seen wearing a rubber Halloween mask and black jumpsuit. He escaped capture and is still at large. Police are asking for any information regarding the whereabouts of Myers and are considering him armed and very dangerous. Now, there are some inconsistencies regarding the description of the first movie's plot, but one stands out. Michael only killed 3 teenagers in the original film. This could be a mistake, or it could be implying that, in this timeline, Michael actually successfully murdered Laurie Strode and then managed to escape. Here's the thing about this book, it doesn't take place in any of the film timelines. It ignores every movie except the first, beating Halloween H2O at making a new timeline by several months. The inconsistencies don't end there either. The book says that Michael was shot 6 times by the police in 1978, not a psychiatrist, and that he is still at large to this day. The book also states that Michael was last confirmed to be active 10 years before, performing a massacre of 12 teens in 1987, when he still would have been in a coma during the then current timeline. This is a world where Loomis was unsuccessful in saving Laurie Strode and Michael repeatedly returns in Haddonfield at random. This is probably the darkest possible Halloween timeline. The Michael Myers of these stories isn't considered by most Haddonfield residents as real, just an urban legend. Michael Myers in this timeline is the pure boogeyman he intended to be, never captured after 1978, striking on Halloween and disappearing as soon as he arrives, returning when he's least expected. I honestly like this take on the timeline. It feels the most true to the ending in the original Halloween. Michael's on much more of a mythic scale, less human, and much more boogeyman. Honestly, I'm fine with creating alternate timelines if it leads to cool new takes on Michael Myers while mostly keeping his backstory intact. When you look at the Michael Myers of the original movie, he really is this blank slate that you can do anything with. Okay, so I like the unique take on the timeline, but unfortunately, the other liberties taken with Michael don't quite work. I'll get into those later. Laurie and Sally are caught looking at the confidential files by Mayor Jameson, but instead of punishment, he simply asks them to perform a favor for him, a big favor. Laurie and Sally are tasked with making a Halloween haunt at City Hall that all the teens in town might flock to. Why does the mayor worry about appeasing citizens of his town that can't vote? Well, that remains to be revealed. The girls accept the challenge of building a Halloween maze at City Hall because it provides an opportunity and budget to throw a Halloween Halloween shindig that can upstage their rival Marsha's. Laurie dubs the yet-to-be-made Halloween attraction the Scream Factory on a whim. It sounds like a version of the Cheesecake Factory where they just fucking yell at you. Sally gets her boy toy Matt on board to help, and on the way home from City Hall, the trio encounters another Haddonfield High School student named Jake having motorcycle trouble. Jake is a loner rebel outcast who wears a leather jacket. He's quiet, super dreamy, and mysterious. Jake is also Laurie's crush, the Ben Tramer of this novel, but unlike Ben Tramer, a relationship actually flourishes here. Matt, Sally, and Laurie give the rebel without a clue a ride home and find out that Jake actually lives near the old Myers place, Michael's supposedly abandoned home. Matt insists on checking it out, and Jake invites the jock to trespass on the property while the girls sit tight in Matt's Jeep. Now, the Myers place is the primary setting of the second novel, so not a lot of time is spent at the estate in this first book, but Matt and Jake do spy a disemboweled dog inside. It's blood writing out the word revenge on a wall. Yeah, Michael writes revenge and blood on a whole bunch of stuff in this book. I don't know who he's trying to get revenge on exactly. Maybe it's something explained in one of the two other books, but as far as I know, Michael isn't a revenge guy. He's killing people just because. This sight spooks Jake and Matt, and the boys decide to smartly keep it to themselves. What matters is that Laurie invites her crush Jake to help out on building the Scream Factory, and it turns out that not only is Jake a total hunk, but it also turns out that he's multi-talented, having his own rock band called Zen, working as a prop master at the local theater, and even being a self-taught illustrator. I'm gonna be real here. I think that Laurie is for sure Kelly O'Rourke's self-insert, and that she created Jake to be the boy of her dreams. There's even a scene where Jake takes off his shirt and he has a six-pack, and Laurie spots a yin and yang tattoo on his arm that he explains pretentiously. Here's his actual dialogue explaining the tattoo. That's the yin and yang symbol. It represents the destinies of all living creatures. Yin is dark, sour, and negative, representing evil, and yang is positive, bright, and sweet, representing pure goodness and light. The two balance each other side by side, but they can't come together. Pure evil can never mix with pure goodness. The Laurie and Jake romance takes up a lot of focus in the book. Everything else, even Michael Myers, takes a backseat to the story of young lovers growing close as they build a Scream Factory together. The romance is honestly kind of nauseating. The Halloween movies have romance, sure, but I never felt like it was overbearing. But with this book aimed at young adults specifically, it definitely feels like appealing to teenage girls with romance was a big concern. Michael Myers is in this book, though. You just have to wade through a lot of teen romance and high school popularity politics to get to him. It becomes clear that Michael Myers begins to stalk Laurie and her friends. He follows Laurie home, calls Laurie with his trademark heavy breathing, and leaves Sally a jack-o'-lantern in her locker with a note that just says revenge in blood. Again with the revenge. At one point, while Laurie takes a ride with Jake on his motorcycle, Michael cuts down a whole-ass tree that almost crushes the two lovers in the road. Michael pulls a lot of pranks in this book. He's even a cockblock. All the characters are virgins in this book, and on the night where they're at Jake's house and both Laurie and Sally are willing to put out for Jake and Matt respectively, Michael triggers an alarm in the house that causes the teens to leave and call the cops. Michael spends a lot of time in the shadows, but the weird thing that bothers me about it is that Michael is always described blatantly as Michael Myers. I like it better when books call him the Shape because it makes him seem less human and more mysterious in a way that movies can just get across very easily visually. Michael also kills in this book too. You might think because it's a young adult novel that it's bloodless, but no, there's actually quite a bit of gore. In fact, if this book was made into a movie, it probably would have been the goriest to date. Only issue is, well, most of the kills happen in the last 30 pages. It'd be like all the kills in an actual Halloween movie happening in the last 15 minutes. The first kill doesn't happen until page 71, but it's quite the doozy. An officer inspecting the tree Michael cut down is targeted by the Shape, and Michael stomps the guy's face in Sartain style and proceeds to chop the guy's head off. Here's how the act is described. The blade of the axe descended upon his neck and crunched through his spinal cord, completely severing all ties with the world of the living. Baker's dead eyes stared out of his head, which rolled off into the clearing and stopped next to a crumpled beer can. Savage as fuck! Speaking of savage, despite featuring a mostly traditional rendition of Michael on the cover, the Michael Myers in the actual book is very different from the shape we're used to. For one thing, Michael isn't silent in the book. Now, he doesn't talk, but he does growl like an animal loudly, like all the time in the book. Michael also doesn't wear a blue jumpsuit, he wears a dirty black jumpsuit, in addition to gloves, which is very forward-thinking fashion. The most egregious inconsistency, though, is with Michael's whole head situation. Michael doesn't wear a rubber mask that covers his head, he wears a plastic mask that reveals his real hair, which is described as matted, and for some reason the mask also exposes Michael's teeth, which are rotten and yellow. It's definitely not the familiar Michael Myers, it's much more like the hobo Michael in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. My Michael Myers takes showers and brushes his fucking teeth. It almost feels like this book may not have been written to be a Halloween book originally, but then the publisher was able to get the rights, so a few things were added and changed around, but with a lot of inconsistencies. Enough talking about how weird Michael Myers is in this book. Now here's where I talk about the final act of the story, where honestly most of the shit of consequence actually happens in a short span of time. It's Halloween, and the gang has completed the Scream Factory haunt at City Hall. All the kids at Haddonfield High are going to it instead of the snobby Marsh's party, and Jake, who was once a quiet loner, is now extremely popular with the ladies, much to the chagrin of his new girlfriend Lori. Things take a turn for Lori's and Jake's relationship when it's revealed that there's supposedly another woman in Jake's life named Brenda. Adding to the drama, Sally and Matt find that Matt's Jeep has been vandalized. Sally is convinced Marcia is to blame, but Matt thinks Sally is just being paranoid, and after a fight, Matt drives away from Sally. Here's where things start to heat up in this horror book. Matt drives by the Myers house and spots the chief of police inside on the second floor. Matt calls on the cop to file a vandalism report on his Jeep, and after a few minutes of waiting for the cop to come down, Matt decides to enter the Myers place to investigate. Inside, the boy finds the dead chief of police with a knife in his chest, and Michael attacks Matt. Matt manages to jump out the window and flee into the woods, but the boy ends up in a ditch, succumbing to his injuries. Elsewhere, Lori overhears from Mayor Jameson that Michael Myers is on the loose, and that the Scream Factory is basically a ploy to keep teens off the street of Haddonfield, and possibly also a way to hopefully draw Michael out of hiding. Instead of canceling the party and warning their peers, Lori and Sally decide to just go on with the Scream Factory anyway, stating that Michael Myers can't kill everyone who shows up to the party. I used to feel like this line of thinking was unbelievable, but recent real-world events have proven that this is an extremely plausible handling of the situation. Back in the woods, Michael is in the process of burying Matt alive in the ditch with a shovel that the shape just coincidentally had on him, but Michael overhears the festivities kicking off at the Scream Factory and just fucks off over to City Hall, allowing Matt to survive. Not exactly in character for Michael, but okay. At the Scream Factory, Jake and his band, Zen, play a spooky goth song for the wild crowd of 300 teens, and here are the lyrics. He's going to get you, he'll follow you home. He's been waiting and watching, you're never alone. He's out in the woods, he's been waiting for you. When he gets you alone, your young life is through. I'm the boogeyman, baby, and I'll never die. I'm the boogeyman, baby, and that's no lie. I'm the boogeyman, baby, so don't even try to get away from me. Honestly, those sound like Rob Zombie lyrics. That isn't the only song Jake plays, though. He also plays a song that was written for his old girlfriend, Brenda, and sings it to Lori to try to win back her trust, but doesn't count on the actual Brenda showing up and having a cat fight with Lori out of jealousy. Brenda is apparently a lunatic who got hooked to drugs, which is why Jake broke up with her, but still, it's kind of fucked up how Jake just sang a song that he wrote for this other girl, knowing it would piss her off. For some reason, Lori doesn't call Jake out on this really horrible act and just acts all romantic with him afterwards. Security takes Brenda away, and I guess this provides Michael an opening to sneak into City Hall and stab Mayor Jameson to death. Lori, Sally, and Jake become aware of Michael's presence inside the Scream Factory, and the hundreds of teens panic to try to get out, but alas, the doors are locked from the inside, possibly to keep the teens safe from Michael. Michael ends up butchering all of Jake's bandmates, and in the panic, Michael cuts a net used to hold balloons that lands on Lori, Jake, and a bunch of other teens, trapping them. Michael somehow manages to pull a gas canister out of his ass and spreads gasoline all over the joint, intending to burn the building down, and Michael ignites the gas with one of the jack-o'-lanterns. Luckily, Matt magically arrives after being mostly buried alive, and he tries to draw Michael into a trap. A guillotine that Jake set up in the Scream Factory. Yeah, Jake put a real guillotine in this haunted house attraction. Michael gets one more kill in by snapping the neck of the snobby bitch Marcia, and then, for some reason, he decides to head over to Matt, who is clearly holding a string lifting up the guillotine blade. Michael walks into the guillotine, looks up, and the blade lands square in his fucking face, seemingly killing him. Yeah, with how much attention is given to Laurie, she doesn't turn out to be the hero of the story. She just watches everything happen as Matt saves everybody's lives despite his major injuries. So Laurie, Sally, Matt, and Jake all escape the burning city hall alive. Yeah, all the main characters survive the story, even if they didn't have anything to do at the end. Kind of a little too precious with these characters, Kelly O'Rourke. It isn't a total upbeat ending as a jack-o'-lantern with the guillotine blade embedded into its face is thrown out of the burning city hall, revealing that Michael Myers very likely survived, just with a fucked up face and a bit burned up. Definitely nothing new for him though. Halloween the Scream Factory is a mixed trick-or-treat bag. It's an uneven tale that focuses heavily on cheesy teen romance and not enough on Michael Myers or even on the titular Scream Factory. What is there horror-wise is pretty spooky, but unfortunately the book isn't very consistent with the Halloween movies, which will likely disappoint hardcore fans who managed to track the book down. I will say though that I did enjoy the book. It was a fun read, and I would have loved to have access to horror movie tie-in books like this regardless of quality. Still, I wouldn't recommend buying this book for hundreds of dollars unless you are a hardcore Halloween collector. I give Halloween the Scream Factory the yin and yang symbol out of the word revenge written in blood. If you don't feel like tracking down a copy of this ultra-rare book, again, I'll be recording my own audiobook of Halloween the Scream Factory. Get subscribed and check it out when it's up on YouTube. Oh, and thanks again for lending the book to me, Brian Chapman. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, like it, and if you loved it, subscribe for more and click the bell icon to find out when my latest vids and streams go live. Want a double dose of Dr. Wolfula? Donate to my Patreon and you'll get bonus content for supporting the channel, including exclusive movie streams and commentaries weekly. I'd like to give a special thanks to my true Wolfulite supporters on Patreon and my channel memberships for their pledges. Their support helps keep the channel going after all these years. Thank you guys. Alrighty, Dr. Wolfula signing out. See you all next time.